Mr. Carpenter, please call the roll.
Senators Bridges, Cook, Corum, Crowder, Danielson, Donovan, Finberg, Fields, Foote, Gardner, Janal, Gonzalez, Hanson, Hill, Heisey, Holbert, Lee, Lundeen, Marble, Moreno, Pedersen,
Excused.
Priola, Rankin, Rodriguez, Scott, Smallwood, Sonnenberg, Story, Tate, Todd, Williams, Winter, Woodward, Zenzinger. Mr. President.
Here. With 34 present, 0 absent, and 1 excuse, we have a quorum. Senator Janal, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Members, please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adoption of the Journal. Senator Heisey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the reading of the Journal of Friday, February 7th, 2020 be dispensed with and that the Journal be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Senate Services.
Greg Lynn Gross, Senate Bill 152, Senate General Resolution 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13.
Introduction of resolutions.
House Joint Resolution 1003 by Representative Geithner and Senator Lundeen concerning the designation of United States Highway 24 from the intersection of Garrett Road to the intersection of Elbert Road in Falcon, Colorado as the Sergeant Major James Gregory Ryan Sarter Memorial Highway.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move HJR 1003, lay over 1 day under the rules.
The motion is to lay over Senate Joint Resolution 1003 until tomorrow. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and Senate Joint Resolution 1003 will be laid over until 2/11/2020. Third reading of bills. Third reading of bills consent calendar. Mr. Carpenter, please read the bill listed on the third reading consent calendar.
Senate Bill 152 by Senators Zenzinger and Woodward and Representative Valdez D. concerning correction of the effective date clause of Senate Bill 19263 for the purpose of ensuring that the bill accomplishes its intended legal effect of eliminating the requirement that the state treasurer execute lease purchase agreements to fund transportation projects during the 2020-21 and 2021-22 to state fiscal years if referred to ballot issue that authorizes the state to issue transportation revenue anticipation notes is approved at the 2020 general election.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the passage of the bill on the third reading of the bill's consent calendar, which includes Senate Bill 152.
Is there any discussion on Senate Bill 152? Seeing none, the motion is for the passage of Senate Bill 152 on third reading and final passage consent calendar. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 1 excuse, Senate Bill 152 is passed. Co-sponsors. Senator Hansen. Third reading of bills, final passage. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to lay over Senate Bill 93, which is the only bill on third reading of bill's final passage until tomorrow, February 11th, 2020.
The motion is to lay over Senate Bill 093 until 2/11/2020. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and Senate Bill 093 will be laid over until 2/11/2020 and retain its place on the calendar. Second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. I move that the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The Senate will resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar, and Senator Danielson will take the chair.
Oh, it is? My mistake, sir.
The committee will come back to order, and the coat rule is relaxed for everyone in the Senate chamber. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of all the bills on the general orders, second reading of bills, consent calendar.
House Bill 1056 by Representatives Duran and Landgraf and Senators Crowder and Janal concerning the non-substantive reorganization of the Dental Practice Act. House Bill 1021 by Representatives McQueen and Mateo, Senators Todd and Quorum concerning the addition of representatives from Native American tribes with reservations in Colorado and the Colorado Youth Advisory Council. Senate Bill 102 by Senators Janal and Cook and Representative Carveo concerning required disclosures to patients regarding formal actions based on sexual misconduct. Senate Bill 114 by Senator Gardner and Representative Tipper concerning the Uniform Registration of Canadian Money Judgments Act.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for the adoption of all the bills on the consent calendar and their associated committee reports, which includes House Bill 1056, House Bill 1021, along with the State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee report, Senate Bill 102, along with the Judiciary Committee report, and Senate Bill 114.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on any of the committee reports? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of the committee reports. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The committee reports are adopted. Mr. Majority Leader. Oh. Is there any discussion on any of the bills on the consent calendar? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of all of the bills on the consent calendar. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The bills are adopted. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
Motion before the committee is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has had a number of bills under consideration. Mr. Carpenter, please read the report.
Mr. President, committee will place the reports that in consideration of the following test bills being second reading thereof. Makes the following recommendations are on Senate Bill 102 as amended. Senate Bill 114 passed second read order. Gross place the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1056, House Bill 1021 as amended. Passed second read order. Revised and place the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the report.
The motion is for the adoption of the committee of the whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, the committee of the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 102 as amended. Senate Bill 114 passed on second reading, ordered and grossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1056, House Bill 1021 as amended, passed on second reading, ordered, revised, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Second reading of bills, general orders. Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the committee of the whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the Senate will resolve itself into the committee of the whole for consideration of general orders, second reading of bills. And Senator Danielson will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. And the court rule is relaxed for everyone in the Senate chamber. Senator Todd.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I move Senate Bill 87.
Thank you, Senator Todd. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of Senate Bill 87.
Senate Bill 87 by Senator Todd and Representative Melko concerning requiring Central Service technicians to possess professional credentials.
Senator Todd, to the bill.
Thank you, and to the Health Committee report. Basically, what the bill did is address the credentialing of I'm sorry, just a minute, let me get my head straight here. On the professional of infections control, epidemiology, and this is for the technicians being certified and for sterilization in our hospitals and in our surgery centers.
Thank you, Senator Todd. Could you please move the committee report?
Yes, and I move the Health and Human Service Committee report.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on the committee report? Question for the body is the adoption of the Health and Human Services Committee report. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The report is adopted. Senator Todd, there's an amendment on the desk.
Yes, thank you. And the amendment is to the committee report, the Health Committee report. And basically what this amendment is... Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I already moved it. I moved the Health and Human Services Committee report. I'm sorry. I thought I moved it. I didn't. We adopted it. You did. And you moved it. I did move it. Okay, that's what I thought. Yep.
Okay, Senator Todd, go ahead and move the amendment L002.
Thank you. L002, basically, there was conversation about whether it needed to be 24 months or 18 months, and what we did is we passed it at 24 months, but we believe that it's much more of an urgency and to move it back to the 18 months period of time for approval, and so with that, I move L002.
Thank you. Is there further discussion on amendment L002? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of amendment L002. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. Is there further discussion on the committee report? To the bill. Senator Todd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And what this bill does is this is certification for technicians that are in our hospitals and in our surgery centers, that they pass an examination for readiness to actually make sure that they know and understand the sterilization process and that they are equipped with that credentialing.
Is there further discussion on Senate Bill 87? Senator Janal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to rise in support of Senate Bill 87 because if any of us have to go in for surgery, whether it's an ambulatory care surgery center or it's in the hospital, we want to make sure that all of the items that are used in surgery are autoclaved so that it kills all the bacteria so that we do not get an infection. So this, to me, is a very important area to support. Requiring credentials on central service technicians is of utmost importance, I think, not only for the hospital, but for the patients. So I rise in support of Senate Bill 87.
Senator Tate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just out of curiosity, was there a Sunrise report from DORA related to this? And I'd like to maybe hear anecdotally about what stories are there about problems where we need this type of regulation, having worked myself with professionals in the surgery suite, both in terms of regulation as well as in context also of the opioid crisis.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And no, there was not, and they did not testify in committee. And what I would say is that if we go back and we look historically over the last several years, there have been several huge outbreaks of infections in Porter Hospital. And so, again, making sure that people are certified, they know what they're doing, and that people are feeling safe, that when they go in for surgeries or when they go in for medical care, that's why we believe that this is so important.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I supported this bill also, basically for the same reasons, but I think that on health care, especially in your standalone surgical issues where people are, there's some serious issues that there'll be some more bills come out on that when a young healthy lady goes in for minor surgery and basically the anesthesiologist made somewhat of a mistake, and the surgical hospital did not call in an ambulance for 5 hours, and now there's basically traumatic brain injury forever. I think that that kind of fits into this, but I think it was for the infection of the instruments, which we do hear about on occasion, so that's why I supported it. Thanks.
Is there further discussion on Senate Bill 87? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 87. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 87 is adopted. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of Senate Bill 64.
Senate Bill 64 by Senator Foote and Representative Soper and Tipper concerning the repeal of a prohibition on the State Attorney General bringing an action under state antitrust law when certain corporate actions have been reviewed by a federal entity.
Senator Foote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Senate Bill 64, and there is no committee report.
To the bill. Senator Foote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, Senate Bill 64 deals with the Attorney General's ability to intervene in potential mergers and acquisitions if the federal government declines to intervene. Currently, there is a prohibition in our state law that disallows the Attorney General from intervening in those situations. It's the only, actually, as it turns out, Colorado is the only state that has that particular prohibition. And this bill is quite a small bill, or I should say it's actually not a very lengthy bill. It strikes out one paragraph worth of law that prohibits the Attorney General from intervening in these situations. And the reason for this is that the Attorney General of the state of Colorado is tasked with defending the state of Colorado's interest in court all the way from state courts all the way through federal courts, and with or against the federal government as appropriate. Right now, if the federal government declines to take up a merger and acquisition that involves Colorado and Colorado consumers, the Attorney General cannot act, even if the Attorney General feels like that it should be taken up and should be challenged in court. So this bill reverses that if it were enacted and would allow the Attorney General to defend Colorado consumers' interests in court if that was something that was necessary and found to be appropriate based on the Attorney General's decision making. So I ask for an aye vote on the bill.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, members, I'm not going to spend a large amount of time on this bill on second reading. Not going to request that it be read at length since the bill itself is shorter than the mischief it creates or its explanation. But the bill passed out of judiciary on a party line vote, and there was a reason for that. This bill, what it really does is authorize Colorado's Attorney General to become an activist Attorney General in one more way, in the ways that you see throughout the United States. Now, the bill itself, and maybe this suits you fine, it removes a prohibition that has existed in Colorado law for some time. And the Colorado Attorney General, unlike the New York and California Attorney Generals, is prohibited from bringing an action under state antitrust law when those actions have already been reviewed by the Federal Trade Commission and the Department of Justice. Now, this has been the law through multiple attorneys general. Attorney General Salazar, Attorney General Suthers and Kaufman. We heard from the staff that, they needed this power. Interestingly enough, when I asked, well, why didn't General Suthers ask for this? Why didn't General Kaufman ask for this? Why didn't General Salazar maybe do this? They said, well, you know, we've engaged a lot on these things, and then I ultimately heard that we had, as a state, already leveraged Sprint and T-Mobile to do certain things, even though we didn't intervene in the antitrust action because we can't if it was approved. I don't know, it sounded to me like legal extortion. Maybe it was good things that they did, but it was certainly legal extortion. If you wanted to get your merger deal done, then you needed to do what Colorado insisted, and now there's 13 other states out there. Members, this is just a license to, I hesitate to use the word, but I don't know of any other word. It's a license to extort. We already have a Federal Trade Commission and a Department of Justice that are experts in this, and they review these matters, hundreds of them every year. I did ask that there was the statement made by the Associate Attorney General that we often don't get notice of these things because we're not required to it's not required that we get notice. And I said, well, then, do other states have a requirement for notice? And the answer was, well, there are some. And so I'm asking myself, if the problem is that we don't get notice of these merger actions, and if we had notice, well, we could nevertheless engage before the federal government said, okay, fine, but we just don't have notice. Why aren't we bringing a notice bill instead and just say Sprint, T-Mobile, whoever else, pick up the Wall Street Journal, you name them. You have to tell the state of Colorado if it's affecting us, and then we'll engage, as we apparently already are doing. But, you know, if the Federal Trade Commission and the Department of Justice ultimately say as an interstate commerce matter that it's fine, we don't need to be intervening and spending the state's money. Really what the Attorney General needs to be worrying about is water, public safety, deceptive trade practices. I'm going to ask for a no vote today, and I will ask for a no vote on thirds. Thank you.
Senator Foote.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and colleagues. If I want to ask a simple question, just one question, if you could answer this for me, and I'm wondering, by a show of hands, who here thinks the federal government is always right? So if you didn't raise your hand, then you should be a yes on this bill, and that's because the Colorado Attorney General is tasked with looking out for the state of Colorado and Coloradans. That's not necessarily the same as the FTC or the Department of Justice. We want to make sure that the Attorney General here in Colorado has the ability to look out for Coloradans when it comes to these mergers and acquisitions, and that's why I hope that you will be a yes on this bill.
Senator Hill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Colleagues, I have one more question for you. By show of hands, I'm curious how many of you think that adding more lawyers to the mix makes for better public policy? If you don't think that the addition of more lawyers makes for better public policy, I encourage you to vote no on this bill.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, let me answer the question of the good senator from Lafayette. I don't think the federal government is always right. In fact, many of you will recall many times that I've said that the federal government is not right. But I've also, and you can go ask the mayor of Colorado Springs, I've also said that our own Attorney General is not right all the time, even when he or she has been of my own party. So my colleague from Colorado Springs, I think, puts a very good question. How many of you think that having more of me in public policy is a really good idea? I can't even get a hand from my own side for that. It is not a good idea. And in fact, there is a better solution to this problem, and it would simply be a notice provision. We don't need to spend taxpayer dollars intervening with 13 other Democrat attorneys general every time there's a merger, every time there's something like that, to extort money when we already have a complete Department of Justice Antitrust Division and Federal Trade Commission, which by the way, in all administrations, Democrat and Republican alike, has been the premier organization in antitrust law, not all of the attorneys general with their, dare I say, somewhat parochial interest on what are large interstate commerce issues. I ask for no vote.
Senator Lee.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the comments of my colleague from El Paso County on this bill. What the Attorney General wants to do with this bill is to provide him more options and more alternatives to protect Colorado consumers. That's really a major job of the Attorney General of the state of Colorado, is to enforce the rights and protections of consumers. And the way the law is now, the Attorney General can be prevented from doing that. They do not get notification of mergers. That would be a responsibility of the federal government. So if they become aware of mergers, it may be because of what they read in the paper. But this empowers the Attorney General to go in and I wouldn't use the extort term. I would use the term protect Colorado consumers. I believe the commitment that was made by the telephone communications company was that they would put a headquarters or a facility here in Colorado and create several thousand jobs. That, to me, is beneficial to Colorado consumers. Had the merger been approved, the Attorney General would not have been in a position to do that. So this just empowers the Attorney General of Colorado to do the job that he is statutorily intended to do. I would urge an aye vote.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, my colleagues respond, and I will keep responding. A lot of very damaging things to consumers and to the market and to competitive pricing have been done in the name of protecting consumers. And if we want to talk about those things, I can go back and pull up several of those things from the glorious internet, which operates freely, at least for the moment. All this is a license for the Attorney General to go hunting. Go hunting and to prey upon mergers that have already been approved. You know, shareholders also deserve protection. You say, oh, those big corporate shareholders that hold my pension fund and your pension fund and the small mutual funds. And I'll be quite honest with you, the Sprint T-Mobile merger, it has just puzzled the heck out of me why that was ever all that controversial, but it was used to leverage things out of them so that my cell phone bill would go up in the end. So heaven save me from those who would protect me. Vote no.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 64. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 64 is adopted. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
Motion before the body is to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The committee will rise and report.
The Senate will come to order. Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has met and had a number of bills under consideration. Mr. Carpenter, please read the report.
Mr. President, committee holds executive reports that in consideration the following attached bills, being second reading there makes the following recommendations are on. Senate Bill 87 is amended Bill 64 passed second reading order and gross place the calendar for third reading and final passage.
Senator Danielson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
The motion before the body is adoption of the committee, the whole report. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, the committee, the whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 087 as amended, Senate Bill 064, passed on second reading, order engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Governor's Appointments Consent Calendar. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read all of the appointments listed on the consent calendar?
Members of the Board of Commissioners of Veterans Community Living Centers, effective July 1st, 2019, for terms expiring July 1st, 2023. Richard Edward Young of Denver, Colorado, to serve as a veteran. As a Democrat, reappointed William Lewis Robinson of Castle Rock, Colorado, to serve as a veteran and designee of State Board of Veterans Affairs. And as an unaffiliated, reappointed Carolyn May Roll of Brush, Colorado, to serve as a member with expertise in nursing home operations, who is a nursing home administrator at the time of appointment, who is experienced in the financial operations of nursing home as a Republican, reappointed for term expiring July 1st, 2023. Scott James Bartlett of Woodland Park, Colorado, the State Long-Term Ombudsman, and occasioned by the resignation of Ann Kerr Meyer of Evergreen, Colorado, appointed member of the Uninsured Employer Board, effective September 1st, 2019, for term expiring September 1st, 2022. Roger Allen Hayes of Aurora, Colorado, to serve as representative of employers, reappointed.
Mr. Majority Leader.
I'm glad we pay the reader by the word, not by the minute. Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the confirmation of all the appointments on the consideration of governor's appointments consent calendar, including members of the Board of Commissioners of Veterans Community Living Centers and the members of the Uninsured Employer Board.
Is there any discussion? The motion before the body is the confirmation of all the governor's appointments listed on the consent calendar. Are there any no votes? With 34 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, and 1 excused, all of the appointments on the consent calendar are confirmed. Announcements. Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to just bring everyone's attention that there will be a legislative reception tonight for CREA, our electric cooperatives, and it is 5:30 to 7:30, and the information is on your desk if you'd like to attend. We'd love to see you there. Thank you.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I would like to invite everyone to, may I ask for a moment of personal privilege?
Granted.
Thank you. I would like to invite everyone to a reception tomorrow night with the Global Medical Response at 5 to 7 at the University Club. And I would also like to let you know that I have spoken with the Majority Leader and the Minority Leader, and I wish you all happy Valentine's Day, because I won't be here to send you hugs and kisses.
The good senator from Aurora will be fined $2, as both of those are announcements. Senator Foote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have an announcement about the Senate State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee. We will be meeting at the normal time, 1:30, but our location will be the old State Library today, as opposed to upstairs in the committee room. So we're going to hear first House Bill 1132, then Senate Bill 84, and then Senate Bill 105, Old State Library this afternoon.
Sarah Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Business, Labor, and Technology Committee, we will meet at 1:30 today in 354. We have a Pinnacle Assurance Board of Directors confirmation. We'll hear Senate Bill 68, 78, and 55. Please be on time. Thank you.
Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the Judiciary Committee or anyone who's planning on testifying on Senate Bill 76, it is off the calendar for Wednesday, postponed for 1 week. It's the parole eligibility for youthful offenders is off the calendar for this week and will be postponed for 1 week. Thank you, members.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, just so folks know, supplementals are here, and they will be in Appropriations Committee tomorrow morning. We will be discussing them, caucusing on them, and voting on them on Wednesday on seconds. If you do have amendments for those supplementals, they are due at 4 p.m. on Tuesday, so tomorrow at 4 p.m. You should have your amendments in if you wish to run any on the supplemental package, which will be on Wednesday on second reading. For now, Mr. President, I move the Senate recess until noon today.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. The Senate will stand in recess until 1200 hours today.